The morning sun cast long shadows across the campus of the University of Colorado as Jake Morrison threw his hiking backpack into his old pickup truck. He could hardly believe it was really happening. After 2 years of applications, interviews, and waiting, he was actually going to study on an alien planet. The Galactic Educational Consortium had picked only 50 students from all of Earth, and somehow his name had made the list. Jake pulled out his phone and read the message from his program coordinator one more time. Report to Denver Spaceport. At 0800, bring only essential items. Everything else will be provided on Zenthari Prime. He laughed at that. The aliens had been very clear about what they considered essential. No camping gear, no sports equipment, no dangerous items. They had even questioned his decision to bring his basic first aid kit. 3 hours later, Jake stood in the departure lounge with 4 other students who would be his companions for the next year. Lily Anderson looked like she had stepped right off a Texas ranch, which she had. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she kept checking her engineering textbooks like they were old friends. Carlos Rivera bounced on his feet with nervous energy, his dark eyes bright with curiosity about the cultures he would soon meet. Amy Walsh sat quietly, her red hair catching the light as she reviewed medical journals on her tablet. Tyler Brooks stood apart from the group, his military bearing obvious even in civilian clothes. "Can you believe we're really doing this?" Carlos asked, grinning at the others. "My anthropology professors are so jealous they can barely speak." "I still can't figure out why they picked us," Amy said, looking up from her reading. "I mean, there were thousands of applicants." Tyler shrugged. "Maybe they wanted a good mix. Biology, engineering, anthropology, medicine, and physics. We cover a lot of ground between us." The departure gate opened and a tall, thin figure glided toward them. The alien wore flowing robes that seemed to shift color in the light. Its face was elegant and narrow, with large silver eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. When it spoke, its voice carried a musical quality that made the words sound like a song. "Greetings, young humans. I am Ambassador Thelnara of the Zenthari. I will escort you to your new home." The ambassador's eyes moved over each student carefully. "I must say you are all much larger than we expected. Our files indicated that human juveniles were smaller." "We're not juveniles," Lily said with a slight frown. "We're college students, adults." The ambassador blinked slowly. "Ah, yes, forgive me. Your species ages differently than ours. Are you quite certain you are prepared for this journey? Space. Travel can be difficult for developing minds." Jake exchanged glances with Tyler. "We're ready," he said. "We've all flown before." "Flown?" The ambassador looked confused. "You mean an aircraft? On your planet?" "Sure," Amy said. "Commercial flights mostly. Jake here has been skydiving." Ambassador Thelnara went very still. "Skydiving? You mean deliberately falling from great heights?" "It's a sport," Jake explained. "You jump out of a plane with a parachute." The ambassador made a soft sound that might have been distress. "I see. Well, perhaps we should board now. The medical staff on the ship will want to examine you before we begin the journey." The ship was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. It was huge, gleaming white, and completely silent as it lifted off from Earth. The interior was filled with soft curves and gentle lights. Everything seemed designed to be as comfortable and safe as possible. Within an hour of departure, each human had been examined by a team of alien doctors. The medical staff spoke in hushed tones about bone density and muscle development and incredibly robust vital signs. They seemed amazed that the humans were walking around and talking normally. "Your cardiovascular systems are remarkable," Dr. Calvin told Amy as he studied her test results. "Your heart rate and blood pressure would indicate severe stress in most species, yet you appear completely calm." "That's just normal for humans," Amy replied. "We need higher pressure to pump blood through our bodies." The doctor made several notes. "Fascinating, and this scarring on your hands?" Amy looked down at her palms. "Oh, that's from swimming. Pool chemicals and rough surfaces, you know." "You regularly expose yourself to chemicals?" "Well, chlorine isn't that bad." I swim in the ocean too. Salt water is actually better for healing cuts. Dr. Kelvin looked like he might faint. You swim in unprocessed natural water? With wild creatures? Sure. Sharks mostly stay away from people. You're more likely to get hurt by jellyfish or stepping on something sharp. The doctor immediately called for a colleague to review Amy's files. Similar conversations were happening all over the medical bay. Lily casually mentioned that she had worked on her family's ranch since she was 10, handling large animals and heavy equipment. The engineers were fascinated by her descriptions of fixing tractors and building fences. Carlos talked about hiking through different countries, eating local food, and sleeping outdoors. The cultural specialists seemed shocked that he had survived contact with so many unregulated environments. Tyler kept his answers short, but even his basic description of military training sent the alien psychologists into urgent discussions. Jake's stories about rock climbing and camping had the safety officers filing formal reports. By the time they reached the midpoint of their journey, word had spread throughout the ship. The humans were not what anyone had expected. They were stronger, more adaptable, and far more resilient than any previous data had suggested. What the aliens had thought would be a simple educational exchange was turning into something much more significant. Ambassador Thelnara found Jake in the observation lounge looking out at the stars. "Tell me, Jake Morrison, what do you think of space travel?" Jake shrugged. "It's amazing, but honestly less scary than I expected. I mean, this ship is incredibly safe. Multiple backups for everything, soft surfaces, controlled environment. It's like the safest place I've ever been. Safer than your home? Oh, definitely. Back home you have to watch out for weather, wild animals, poisonous plants, unstable ground. Here everything is controlled and predictable." The ambassador was quiet for a long moment. "Your home world is truly as dangerous as our files indicate." "I guess it depends on what you mean by dangerous. I grew up in Colorado. Mountains, bears, sudden storms, avalanches. But that's just normal life. You learn to be careful and prepared. And all humans live this way?" Jake nodded. "Pretty much. I mean, some places are safer than others, but nowhere on Earth is completely safe. That's just how it is." Ambassador Thelnara looked out at the stars with new understanding. These were not fragile students from a harsh world. These were products of that world, shaped by it, made strong by it. The next year was going to be very interesting indeed. The transport ship dropped into orbit around Zenthari Prime, just as the planet's 3 suns began their daily dance across the sky. Jake pressed his face to the viewport and whistled softly. The world below looked like a painting. Perfect blue, oceans, emerald green continents, and not a single cloud anywhere in the bright atmosphere. "Welcome to our world," Ambassador Thelnara said with obvious pride. "As you can see, we have achieved perfect environmental control. No storms, no floods, no droughts. The weather follows precise patterns that never vary." Lily looked puzzled. "How do your plants get enough water variation for proper growth cycles?" "Water variation?" The ambassador seemed confused. "All our plants receive exactly the amount of water they need, delivered at optimal times through our distribution networks." "But what about natural selection? Genetic diversity? How do they adapt to changing conditions? Why would they need to adapt? Conditions never change." The shuttle ride down to the surface was smooth as silk. No turbulence, no sudden movements, nothing but a gentle glide through the controlled atmosphere. When they landed at the university spaceport, Jake noticed that even the landing pad was covered with some kind of soft material. "Safety cushioning," their guide explained as they disembarked. "We cannot risk anyone being injured by contact with hard surfaces." The university itself was a wonder of gentle architecture. Every corner was rounded, every surface was soft to the touch, and the floors had a springy quality that made walking feel like bouncing on a trampoline. Gardens filled every open space, but Jake noticed something odd about the plants. They were all perfectly shaped, with no dead leaves, no irregular growth, and no signs of insect damage. "Where are all the bugs?" Carlos asked as they walked through a particularly beautiful flower garden. Their Zinthari guide, a young student named Velnara, looked concerned. Bugs? Do you mean insects? Oh, those were eliminated centuries ago. They were dangerous and served no purpose. No purpose. Amy stared at him. What about pollination? Soil aeration? Food webs? Our plants are pollinated by gentle breezes we create for them. The soil is maintained by automated systems. Food webs are unnecessary when we can provide nutrition directly. Tyler had been quiet since their arrival, but now he spoke up. What happens if your automated systems fail? Velnara looked genuinely confused by the question. Why would they fail? They are designed to work perfectly. But what if they do? What if there's a power outage or a malfunction? Such things do not happen, Velnara said firmly. Our technology is completely reliable. The dormitory assigned to the human students was like a luxury hotel designed for invalids. The beds were so soft they nearly swallowed anyone who lay down. The walls were padded. The bathroom fixtures were made of flexible materials that bent rather than holding firm. Even the water temperature was automatically controlled to prevent any risk of scalding. This is ridiculous, Lily muttered as she tried to use a shower that automatically shut off every 30 seconds to prevent overexposure to water. How? Do they expect us to actually get clean? Jake was having his own problems with furniture that bent and swayed every time he tried to sit down. I feel like I'm living inside a bouncy castle. Their first day of classes was an eye-opening experience. The human students were seated in special chairs that had been imported just for them, with safety restraints and padding on every surface. Their alien classmates kept a respectful distance, as if the humans might be contagious. Professor Crindall began the xenobiology lecture by projecting a star map. Today we will discuss planetary classifications and habitability ratings. As you know, worlds are rated from Class 1, which are perfectly safe garden worlds like our own, up to Class 12, which are considered completely uninhabitable death worlds. Carlos raised his hand. What makes a world get classified as Class 12? Excellent question, the professor replied. Class 12 worlds have multiple catastrophic factors: unstable weather patterns, dangerous predatory life forms, toxic atmospheric conditions, geological instability, and unfiltered radiation from their parent stars. No intelligent life could possibly evolve on such worlds, much less thrive. The professor clicked to the next slide, and Earth appeared on the screen. This is Sol 3, also known as Earth, homeworld of our exchange students. As you can see, it has earned a Class 12 rating due to its extreme conditions. The alien students turned to stare at the humans with expressions of awe and pity. Jake looked at his friends and saw the same confused expression on all their faces. Excuse me, Professor, Amy said, raising her hand. I think there might be some mistake in your classification system. Oh no, my dear. The classification is quite accurate. Your species has somehow managed to survive on one of the most hostile worlds we have ever discovered. It is truly remarkable that any of you lived long enough to develop space travel. But Earth isn't that dangerous, Jake protested. I mean, sure, we have weather and animals and stuff, but billions of people live there just fine. A Corvani student named Zixka leaned forward with interest. You said weather. Do you mean your atmospheric conditions are not controlled? Well, no. Weather just happens naturally. Rain, snow, wind, storms. Storms? Zixka's voice rose with alarm. You mean violent atmospheric disturbances? Yeah, sometimes. Thunderstorms, blizzards, hurricanes. You learn to deal with them. Zixka fainted and had to be carried from the classroom by medical staff. Professor Crindall looked deeply concerned. Perhaps we should end today's lesson here. I believe our human students need time to process the reality of their situation. As they walked back to their dormitory, the 5 humans found themselves surrounded by curious aliens who kept their distance but followed along, whispering among themselves. Did you hear? They survive natural weather. Apparently they coexist with predatory animals. I heard one of them mentioned swimming in unprocessed water with dangerous creatures. How are they still alive? That evening, Jake sat on his impossibly soft bed and video called his parents back on Earth. His mother's face appeared on the screen, and behind her he could see their backyard in Colorado. It looked normal to him, but after a day on Zenthari Prime, he began to see it through alien eyes. The uncontrolled grass, the unpredictable weather, the possibility that a bear might wander through at any time. "How's the alien planet, honey?" his mother asked. "It's beautiful, Mom, but weird. Everything here is so safe, too safe. They've eliminated every possible risk from their world." "That sounds nice. You'd hate it. Remember how you always said that challenges make us stronger? These people have never faced a real challenge in their entire history. They think we're some kind of miracle for surviving on Earth." His mother laughed. "Well, I suppose compared to them, we are pretty tough." After the call ended, Jake lay back on his soft bed and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow would bring more classes, more shocked alien students, and more questions about how humans managed to survive on their impossible world. He was beginning to realize that this exchange program was going to be very different from what anyone had expected. 3 weeks into their stay on Zenthari Prime, the human students had grown tired of being treated like fragile museum pieces. Every day brought new restrictions and worried looks from their alien classmates. Jake couldn't even go for a walk without a safety escort, and Lily had been banned from the engineering workshops after she tried to fix a broken tool with her bare hands. The breaking point came during their mandatory physical wellness class. Professor Yelnara, a delicate-looking Zenthari with worried silver eyes, had designed what she called appropriate exercise for the human students. The routine involved gentle stretching, light breathing exercises, and slow walking on padded surfaces. "This is ridiculous," Tyler muttered as he was instructed to lie down on a soft mat and lift his arms slowly above his head. "My grandmother does harder workouts than this." "Please be careful," Professor Yelnara called out. "Human bone structure is surprisingly dense, but we must not risk injury through overexertion." Jake watched as his alien classmates struggled with exercises that seemed designed for people recovering from serious injuries. A Corvani student named Drixtel was breathing heavily after walking in place for 2 minutes. Velnara, their Zenthari guide, had to stop and rest after lifting a weight that couldn't have been more than 5 pounds. "Professor," Amy said, raising her hand. "I think there might be some confusion about human physical capabilities." "Oh no, dear. We have studied your species carefully. We know that you come from a high-gravity world and have developed thick bones and dense muscle tissue as survival adaptations, but that does not mean you should strain yourselves." "High gravity?" Carlos looked confused. "Earth's gravity is pretty normal." "Normal?" Professor Yelnara checked her datapad. "According to our measurements, your world has nearly twice the gravitational force of Zenthari Prime." Tyler stood up from his mat, causing several alien students to step back nervously. "Professor, I think we need to show you what normal human exercise looks like." "Oh, that would be far too dangerous. The university insurance policies strictly forbid." Tyler ignored her and dropped to the floor. He began doing push-ups at a steady pace. The alien students watched in stunned silence as he completed 20, then 30, then 50, without showing any signs of strain. "Stop!" Professor Yelnara cried out. "You will injure yourself." "I'm fine," Tyler said, not even breathing hard. "This is basic military fitness. I could do this all day." Lily had moved to the exercise equipment that the aliens used with great care. She picked up their heaviest weight, which was labeled with warnings about proper safety procedures and medical supervision. Without any warm-up, she began doing bicep curls with it. "Someone call medical," a Delphini student shouted. "The human female is having a strength malfunction." "I'm not malfunctioning," Lily said calmly. "This is just normal exercise. Back home I move hay bales that weigh 5 times more than this." Amy had found a running track outside the gymnasium. While the alien students watched through the windows, she began jogging at what she considered a relaxed pace. To the aliens, it looked like she was sprinting for her life. Within minutes, a medical team arrived with emergency transport equipment. "She must be fleeing from some threat," Dr. Calvin said as he watched Amy run laps. "No being runs that fast without being chased by predators." "She's just exercising," Carlos explained. "Humans run for fun. Some of us run for hours at a time." Hours? The doctor looked like he might faint. That is impossible. No heart could sustain such activity. Jake decided to join Amy on the track. His long legs quickly carried him past her at what he considered an easy pace. The medical team began setting up emergency equipment, convinced they were witnessing some kind of human crisis. Should we contact their embassy? Professor Yelnara asked, wringing her hands. Perhaps they are having some kind of psychological episode. The situation got worse when the university's emergency alert system activated. A minor tremor had been detected in the planet's crust, barely strong enough to register on sensitive equipment. Immediately, sirens began wailing and automated voices instructed everyone to proceed to emergency shelters. The alien students and faculty ran in orderly panic toward the reinforced buildings designed to protect them from any seismic activity. The 5 human students stood in the courtyard looking around in confusion. Was that an earthquake? Jake asked. I barely felt it. If that was an earthquake, it was the weakest one I've ever experienced, Lily said. Back home, we don't even get out of bed for tremors that small. Amy had stopped running and was looking around at the empty campus. Did everyone seriously evacuate for that little shake? I felt stronger vibrations from trucks driving past. Tyler shook his head. My bunk bed in the barracks moved more than that when my roommate rolled over. Carlos was the first to realize what had happened. I think that was their version of a major earthquake. Look how scared they are. Through the windows of the emergency shelters, they could see their alien classmates huddled together, some of them crying with fear. Professor Yelnara was speaking urgently into a communication device, probably reporting the seismic event to planetary authorities. We should probably go inside, Amy said. They're going to think we're crazy if we just stand here. But it was too late. Security cameras had recorded everything. Video footage of 5 humans standing calmly in a courtyard during what the aliens considered a dangerous earthquake was already spreading through the university's communication networks. When the all-clear signal finally sounded an hour later, the aliens emerged from their shelters to find the humans sitting on a bench, chatting casually about their classes. The sight of these beings, completely unaffected by what had been classified as a Level 3 emergency, sent shockwaves through the academic community. How? Velnara asked, approaching them cautiously. How did you survive the seismic event? Without protection? Survive? Jake looked puzzled. That wasn't dangerous. I've been in earthquakes 10 times stronger than that and just kept doing whatever I was doing. 10 times stronger? Velnara's legs gave out, and he had to sit down, heavily on the soft grass. You have experienced seismic events 10 times more powerful and lived? Sure. California gets earthquakes all the time. You learn to ignore the small ones and take cover during the big ones. The big ones? Yeah, like magnitude 7 or 8. Those can actually knock you down if you're not ready for them. Velnara made a sound like a dying animal and put his head between his knees. That night, emergency meetings were held in the university administration building. Faculty members from every department gathered to discuss what they had witnessed. The human students, they realized, were not fragile survivors from a death world. They were products of that world, shaped by it, made strong by constant exposure to dangers that would kill most galactic species. We have seriously underestimated them, Dean Mortal said, reviewing the day's reports. Physical capabilities, far beyond our strongest individuals. Complete immunity to stress responses that incapacitate our students, and casual tolerance for environmental dangers that require our emergency protocols. What does this mean for the exchange program? Professor Yelnara asked. The dean looked at the video footage one more time, watching 5 humans stand calmly in an earthquake, while his entire university evacuated in terror. I think, he said slowly, it means we need to completely revise our understanding of what it means to be human. After the earthquake incident, the human students found themselves at the center of attention throughout the university. Whispers followed them wherever they went, and alien students would stop their conversations to stare when the humans passed by. The administration had decided that a formal presentation was needed to help everyone understand Earth and its inhabitants better. We want you to give a lecture about your homeworld, Dean Mortal explained during their meeting in his office. Something educational that will help our students and faculty understand human culture and biology. Jake looked at his friends. Sure, we can do that. What kind of things do you want to know about? Everything, the dean said earnestly. Your planet, your history, how you live, what you do for entertainment. Our students are fascinated but also very confused about how your species manages to survive. The 5 humans spent the next week preparing their presentation. They gathered photos, videos, and information about Earth, thinking it would be a fun way to share their world with new friends. None of them realized they were about to deliver what would later be called the horror lecture in galactic academic circles. The main auditorium was packed when presentation day arrived. Students and faculty from every department had come to learn about the mysterious Deathworld survivors. Even Ambassador Thelnara was there, along with several other diplomatic representatives who had traveled from across the system. Carlos stepped up to the podium first. Thank you all for coming. We're excited to tell you about Earth and answer any questions you might have. Let's start with some basic geography. He showed pictures of Earth's continents, pointing out different climate zones and geographical features. The audience seemed fascinated by the variety of landscapes, from deserts to frozen polar regions to tropical rainforests. As you can see, Earth has many different environments. Humans live in all of these places and have adapted our cultures to match the local conditions. Corvani professor raised his hand. How do humans survive in areas with frozen water? Surely such conditions are lethal. Oh no, Carlos laughed. Lots of people live in cold places. They just wear warm clothes and heat their homes. Some humans actually prefer cold weather. Several alien students looked at each other with concern. Living in conditions cold enough to freeze water sounded impossible to them. Jake took over next, showing videos from his outdoor adventures. This is me, Rock. Climbing in Colorado, it's a popular sport where I come from. The footage showed him scaling a cliff face hundreds of feet above the ground, with only a thin rope for safety. The auditorium fell silent. Professor Yelnara made a choking sound and had to leave the room. This is called free climbing, Jake continued, not noticing the growing distress in his audience. Sometimes we don't even use ropes. Here's a video of me bouldering. The footage showed Jake climbing up a rocky wall with no safety equipment at all, just his hands and feet finding holes in the stone. 3 Delphini students fainted and had to be carried out by medical staff. And this is from my camping trip last summer, Jake said, switching to a new video. I spent 2 weeks hiking through Yellowstone National Park. The video showed vast wilderness areas with no buildings or safety barriers in sight. Jake's camera captured him setting up camp near a stream, cooking over an open fire, and casually mentioning that he had seen bear tracks earlier in the day. Bears? Squeaked Velnara. You deliberately went to areas with large predators? Well, yeah, that's where the best hiking is. You just have to be smart about storing your food and making noise so you don't surprise them. You make noise to attract predators? No, to avoid them. Bears usually run away if they know you're coming. They only attack if they're surprised. We're protecting cubs. They attack? Velnara looked ready to faint. Amy stood up next. I'd like to talk about human biology and medicine. She pulled up a chart showing the human immune system. Humans are exposed to millions of bacteria, viruses, and other microorganisms every day. Our immune systems have evolved to fight off most of these threats automatically. Dr. Kylvan, who had been taking notes, suddenly looked up in alarm. Did you say millions every day? Oh yes. We're constantly surrounded by germs. Most of them are harmless or even helpful, but some can make us sick. That's why we developed such strong immune responses. Amy clicked to her next slide showing statistics about human recovery rates from various illnesses and injuries. Humans can survive broken bones, severe infections, major surgery, and even some conditions that would be fatal to other species. How? Dr. Kelvin's voice was barely a whisper. Evolution, Amy said simply. Thousands of years of exposure to diseases, injuries, and environmental threats. The humans who could survive these things lived to pass on their genes. The ones who couldn't died young. The medical staff in the audience were frantically taking notes and whispering among themselves. The concept of evolution through survival of the fittest was not unknown to them, but they had never encountered a species where the selection pressure had been so intense. Lily stepped forward with her engineering presentation. "I want to show you how humans solve problems." She had brought several broken pieces of equipment from around the campus, things that the aliens had marked as awaiting professional repair. "This cooling unit stopped working yesterday," she said, picking up a device that looked like a small refrigerator. "The maintenance staff said it would take a week to get replacement parts." Without any diagnostic equipment, Lily opened the unit and began examining its internal components. Within minutes, she had identified the problem, used a hair clip to bridge a broken connection, and restored the device to working order. The engineering students in the audience stared in shock. "How did you know what was wrong?" one of them asked. "Experience," Lily said. "Back home, if something breaks, you fix it. You don't always have the right parts or tools, so you improvise." She demonstrated this by repairing 2 more devices using nothing but items from her pockets and basic tools. Each repair took only a few minutes and used techniques that the alien engineers had never considered. Tyler's presentation was the most disturbing of all. He had prepared a slideshow about human sports and recreational activities. The images showed boxing matches, football games, motorcycle racing, and extreme sports competitions. "These are some popular human pastimes," Tyler said as he showed footage of people deliberately hitting each other in a boxing ring. "Combat sports teach discipline and fitness." Half the audience was already heading for the exits. The sight of humans voluntarily engaging in violent physical contact was more than many of them could handle. "This is American football," Tyler continued, showing a video of a hard tackle that sent both players crashing to the ground. "It's played by students at most schools and universities." "Students?" gasped Dean Mortal. "You allow juveniles to engage in combat?" "It's not combat, it's sport, and we're not juveniles. But yes, even younger humans play football. It teaches teamwork and physical fitness." Tyler showed more videos: mountain biking, skydiving, surfing in stormy conditions, and marathon running. Each new image sent more aliens fleeing from the auditorium in distress. By the time the presentation ended, less than half the original audience remained. Those who stayed sat in stunned silence, trying to process what they had just learned about human civilization. Ambassador Thel Nara finally stood up on shaking legs. "This presentation will be forwarded to the Galactic Council immediately. I think we need to completely reassess our classification of your species." As the auditorium emptied, the 5 human students looked at each other in confusion. "Do you think it went well?" Carlos asked. Jake looked at the empty seats and the medical staff treating alien students for shock in the hallways. "I'm not sure, but I think we definitely got their attention." News of the presentation spread through galactic communication networks faster than the humans could have imagined. Within days, researchers from dozens of worlds were requesting copies of the lecture recordings. The Galactic Council called an emergency session to discuss what they were now calling the human question. Jake found himself sitting in the university's communication center, answering video calls from alien diplomats, scientists, and military leaders from across the galaxy. The questions came one after another, each caller more amazed than the last. "Is it true that your species regularly consumes ethanol for pleasure?" asked General Krexnor of the Corvani Defense Force. "You mean alcohol?" "Sure, lots of people drink beer or wine with dinner. And this does not poison you?" "Well, too much will make you sick, but moderate amounts are fine. Humans have been making alcoholic drinks for thousands of years." General Krexnor made notes frantically. "And caffeine? Our reports indicate humans consume this stimulant daily. Coffee, tea, energy drinks. Yeah, most people have some caffeine. Every day. It helps us stay alert." "A stimulant drug that you consume regularly and suffer no ill effects?" Jake shrugged. "Some people get headaches if they don't have their coffee, but it's not dangerous." The general ended the call looking deeply troubled. Similar conversations were happening all over campus. Amy found herself explaining human medical practices to a committee of galactic health officials who could not believe that humans performed surgery on themselves, used sharp metal instruments to cut into living tissue, and routinely recovered from procedures that would kill most other species. Lily was fielding calls from engineering groups amazed by human problem-solving abilities. "You repair complex machinery without proper tools or replacement parts?" asked Chief Engineer Dalmar of the Zenthari Technical Institute. "Sometimes you have to improvise. If something's broken and you need it to work, you find a way to fix it. And this improvisation is taught in your schools?" "Not exactly taught, but you learn it by doing. My dad always said there's no problem that can't be solved with enough creativity and stubbornness." The engineer was quiet for a long moment. "We have entire departments dedicated to equipment maintenance, specialists who train for years to repair specific devices, yet you accomplish the same results with basic tools and intuition. I guess we just think about problems differently." Tyler was having the most intense conversations of all. Military leaders from across the galaxy wanted to understand human conflict resolution, training methods, and what they called voluntary stress conditioning. "Your species engages in physical combat for entertainment and character development?" asked Admiral Fendall of the Delphini Space Fleet. "Sports, yeah. Competition makes people stronger and teaches teamwork." "And your military forces? How do they train?" Tyler described basic military training, physical fitness requirements, and combat preparation. The alien admiral listened with growing amazement. As Tyler casually mentioned obstacle courses, weapons training, survival exercises, and the mental conditioning needed to function under extreme stress. "Your warriors train by deliberately exposing themselves to the same conditions they might face in actual combat? That's the only way to prepare someone for the real thing. You can't learn to handle pressure by sitting in a comfortable classroom." The admiral ended the call and immediately began drafting reports to his superiors about the military implications of human psychology and training methods. Carlos found himself at the center of discussions about human social development and cultural adaptation. Anthropologists from peaceful species struggled to understand how humans had developed complex civilizations despite their dangerous environment. "Your people built cities in areas with natural disasters, predators, and environmental dangers?" asked Dr. Yilnath of the Zenthari Cultural Institute. "People build cities where they need them. Rivers flood sometimes, but they also provide water and transportation. Coastlines have storms, but they also have fishing and trade routes. You work with the dangers instead of running from them. And when disasters occur, you rebuild. New Orleans has been flooded dozens of times, but people keep rebuilding because it's an important port city. San Francisco has had major earthquakes, but it's still a major city because the location is valuable. Your species chooses to remain in dangerous locations despite repeated catastrophes. The benefits outweigh the risks. Besides, everywhere on Earth has some kind of danger. You can't avoid all of them, so you learn to manage them." 3 months after the presentation, the results of the galactic reassessment were announced. Earth's classification was changed from Class 12 Deathworld to Class 1 Adaptive Training World. The new classification recognized that what made Earth dangerous also made it the perfect environment for developing the qualities that the galaxy desperately needed. The Galactic Educational Consortium announced a massive expansion of the Human Exchange Program. Instead of bringing a few human students to alien worlds, they would begin sending alien students to Earth to learn what they called adaptive thinking and crisis management. Jake received a message from his parents telling him that their small Colorado town was preparing to host a group of Zenthari students who wanted to learn about wilderness survival and environmental adaptation. His mother was excited about teaching aliens how to garden without automated systems. Lily got a request from a Corvani engineering school asking her to develop a curriculum in improvisational repair techniques. They wanted to send their top students to Texas to learn how to fix things without perfect tools and unlimited resources. Amy was invited to guest lecture at medical schools across the galaxy on biological resilience and adaptive immunity. Alien doctors wanted to understand how human medicine worked with the body's natural healing abilities, instead of simply replacing them with technology. Carlos received offers from a dozen universities to establish cultural adaptation studies programs. Peaceful species wanted to learn how humans had maintained social cooperation despite environmental pressures that would have destroyed most civilizations. Tyler was approached by multiple galactic defense forces asking him to consult on training programs. They wanted to learn how to prepare their people for unexpected challenges and high-stress situations. On their last day at Xanthari Prime, the 5 human students stood in the same courtyard where they had experienced their first earthquake. Velnara, their original guide, approached them with something that looked like respect instead of pity. "When you first arrived, we thought you were refugees from an impossible world," he said. "We felt sorry for you and wanted to protect you from further harm." "And now?" Jake asked. "Now we understand that your world did not try to destroy you. It made you strong. It taught you to adapt, to solve problems, to work together under pressure. These are gifts that most of us never learned because we never needed to." Amy smiled. "Earth isn't trying to kill us, it's just teaching us how to live." As their transport ship lifted off from Xanthari Prime, the human students looked down at the perfect, safe world below. It was beautiful, but they were ready to go, home to a place where the weather was unpredictable. The animals were wild, and every day brought new challenges to overcome. Behind them, they left a galaxy that would never again mistake human adaptability for human weakness. The exchange program had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations, but not in the way anyone had planned. The humans had not learned to be more like aliens. Instead, they had taught the aliens that sometimes the best way to grow strong is to face the storm instead of hiding from it.